"Your fiancée is pregnant by her ex," she whispered to the Duke, and what he did shocked everyone. The words came softly, precisely, delivered during the third waltz of the evening, when music and champagne had loosened tongues throughout the ballroom. Lady Pritchard leaned close to Duke Marcus Ashford, her fan concealing her lips, and whispered with the careful precision of someone delivering poison disguised as concern. "Your Grace, I feel you should know. Your fiancée is pregnant, and the child isn't yours." The Duke's champagne glass stopped halfway to his lips. He didn't shout, didn't demand explanation, didn't cause the scene Lady Pritchard clearly expected. Instead, Marcus Ashford went utterly, unnervingly still. His eyes found his fiancée across the crowded ballroom, Lady Catherine Hartley, lovely in pale blue silk, her hand resting protectively over her abdomen, in a gesture he'd noticed but never questioned until this precise moment. "Hello, lovely. If you're enjoying this tale of secrets, dignity, and choices that define character, I'd be so grateful for a like or subscribe. It helps me bring you more stories of complexity, moral courage, and the messy reality of human relationships. And if you're up for it, tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone whispered a devastating secret about your future? I read every note, and it always brings a smile to my face. 1. The engagement reception at Hartley House glittered with all the elegance London's elite could muster. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across polished marble floors. An orchestra played from the gallery, their music weaving through conversations and laughter. 200 guests celebrated the upcoming marriage between Duke Marcus Ashford and Lady Catherine Hartley, a match everyone agreed was perfectly suitable. Marcus stood near the refreshment table, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. At 42, he'd been a widower for 7 years. His first wife lost to fever, leaving him with no heir and considerable loneliness. Catherine was 31, elegant, well-bred, the daughter of an earl. Their engagement had been arranged through mutual family connections, built on compatibility and practical consideration rather than passionate romance. It seemed sensible, comfortable, appropriate. Then Lady Pritchard delivered her whisper, and the entire foundation shifted beneath Marcus's feet. He didn't react visibly. Years of diplomatic training and aristocratic composure kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced, cataloguing details he'd previously dismissed or simply hadn't noticed. Catherine's hand on her abdomen, not occasionally, but constantly, as though protecting something precious. Her refusal of champagne all evening, claiming a headache. The way she'd avoided physical closeness lately, always positioning furniture or other people between them. The forced quality of her smile, bright and brittle as glass, and the whispers. Marcus heard them now, noticed the glances between guests, the conversations that stopped when he approached. How long had London known something he'd been too distracted to see? Lady Pritchard watched him with predatory interest, clearly expecting fury or confrontation. Marcus gave her neither. Instead, he set down his champagne with deliberate care and said quietly, "Thank you for your concern, Lady Pritchard. If you'll excuse me." He didn't storm across the ballroom, didn't demand Catherine explain herself in front of 200 witnesses. Instead, he moved through the crowd with calm purpose, accepting final congratulations, making polite excuses about needing air, and exited to the garden terrace. The December cold bit through his evening jacket, but Marcus welcomed it. He needed clarity, needed to think without the pressure of watching eyes and waiting gossip. If Catherine was pregnant, the timing made paternity impossible for him. They'd been engaged for 6 weeks, properly chaperoned throughout. They'd shared perhaps 3 brief kisses, all chaste and formal, nothing that could result in a child, which meant someone else, recently, during, or just before their engagement. Marcus felt anger rise, but beneath it something more complicated. Betrayal, yes, but also recognition that their engagement had been built on practicality, not love. He'd proposed because it was time to remarry, because Catherine seemed suitable, because loneliness had become unbearable. Had she accepted for similar reasons? Duty, security, an escape from consequences she already knew were coming. Inside the ballroom, the music continued. Through the tall windows, Marcus watched Catherine moving through the crowd, her face serene, her secret hidden beneath silk and social performance. He made a decision then, one that surprised even himself. He wouldn't confront her publicly, wouldn't allow gossip to devour her reputation before he understood the truth. Whatever she'd done, whatever mistakes she'd made, she deserved to explain privately before society tore her apart. Marcus returned to the ballroom, found Catherine's father, the Earl of Hartley, and requested a private word the following morning. The Earl agreed, clearly sensing something amiss, but too well bred to press for details at his daughter's engagement reception. Then Marcus found Catherine. "Might I have a word before I depart?" She looked startled, then wary. "Of course, Your Grace." They stepped into a quiet alcove off the main ballroom. Marcus kept his voice low, his expression carefully neutral. "Catherine, we need to speak tomorrow, privately. There are matters that require discussion." "What matters?" Her hand went to her abdomen again, that protective gesture. "Tomorrow," Marcus repeated firmly. "At your father's study, 10 o'clock. Catherine's face went pale. She understood. The secret was out, or at least suspected. "Marcus, I can explain. Tomorrow." He bowed formally, distancing himself from the intimacy of given names. "Good evening, Lady Catherine." He left the reception early, ignoring the speculative glances and whispered conversations. His carriage rolled through London's dark streets, while Marcus sat in silence, processing the destruction of his carefully planned future. Back at Ashford House, his private residence, Marcus found his household still awake. Mrs. Eleanor Webb, his estate secretary and household manager, was working late in the study, reviewing correspondence by lamplight. Eleanor was 45, a widow herself, who'd managed Ashford's business affairs for 12 years with quiet competence. She looked up as Marcus entered, immediately reading tension in his posture. "Your Grace, the reception ended early?" It did. Marcus poured himself brandy with hands that were steady through sheer force of will. "Eleanor, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest, even if the truth is uncomfortable." "Always, Your Grace." "Have there been rumours about Lady Catherine, about pregnancy or previous attachments?" Eleanor's expression shifted to sympathy. "Ah, so you've heard. Tonight, from Lady Pritchard, who seemed delighted to deliver the news." Marcus sat heavily in the chair across from Eleanor's desk. "Tell me what you know." Eleanor set down her pen, choosing words carefully. "There have been whispers for several weeks that Lady Catherine was involved with someone before your engagement, a Captain Jonathan Reed, recently returned from India. The timing of your engagement raised questions among those who remembered her previous attachment. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I had no proof, only gossip. And because I thought perhaps the gossip was malicious rather than factual." Eleanor met his eyes with her characteristic directness. "But tonight at the reception, I observed Lady Catherine myself. The signs are there, Your Grace. If she is with child, the timing suggests conception occurred before your engagement, possibly just before." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Not heartbreak exactly. He hadn't loved Catherine, not truly, but the betrayal of her deception, of allowing him to plan a future built on lies that cut deeply. "What will you do?" Eleanor asked quietly. "Tomorrow I'll hear her explanation. Then I'll decide." Marcus finished his brandy. "But Eleanor, whatever happens, I won't destroy her publicly. She's made a mistake, possibly several, but she doesn't deserve to be torn apart by society's cruelty." "That's very generous, considering." "It's not generosity. It's recognition that I proposed for wrong reasons too. Duty, loneliness, the need for an heir, not love. If she accepted my proposal while carrying another man's child, perhaps she was as desperate as I was lonely. That doesn't excuse deception, but it makes it understandable." Eleanor studied him with something that might have been respect. "You're a better man than most would be in this situation, Your Grace." After Eleanor left, Marcus sat alone in his study until dawn, contemplating the ruins of his engagement and wondering what truth tomorrow would bring. 2. Marcus arrived at Hartley House precisely at 10 o'clock. The Earl of Hartley received him in his private study with obvious trepidation, Catherine already present, her face pale but composed. "Your Grace," the Earl began, "my daughter has something she needs to tell you." "Perhaps we might speak alone first," Marcus suggested gently. "With your permission, my lord." The Earl looked between them, read the situation's gravity, and nodded. "I'll be in the library, if needed." After he left, silence filled the study. Catherine stood by the window, her hands twisted together, no longer bothering to hide the slight swell of her abdomen beneath her morning dress. Marcus remained standing as well, maintaining formal distance. How far along? Catherine's breath caught. 3 months, nearly 4. And the father? Captain Jonathan Reed. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "We were engaged 2 years ago. He left for India. The engagement was broken by mutual agreement when he accepted a permanent posting. I thought I'd moved past it. Then he returned unexpectedly last summer. We met once, just once. I thought it was closure. It was a mistake. Does he know?" Catherine shook her head. "He left for India again 6 weeks ago. A 5-year posting. Even if I could reach him, I don't know what I'd say." "So you accepted my proposal, knowing you carried another man's child?" "Yes." The admission came out broken. "I was terrified, ruined. My father would be devastated by the scandal. When you proposed, it seemed like salvation. A respectable marriage, a child that could be explained away as premature but legitimate. I know it was wrong. I know I've deceived you terribly. But I was desperate and afraid, and I convinced myself that you'd never know, that it didn't matter if there was no love between us anyway." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt anger, betrayal, disappointment all warring inside him. But beneath those emotions, he found something unexpected. Understanding. "You're right that there was no love between us," he said quietly. "I proposed because it was time to remarry, because you seemed suitable, because I was lonely and needed an heir, not because I loved you. So perhaps we're both guilty of building something on false foundations." Catherine looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. You deserved honesty. You deserved better than my desperation disguised as acceptance." Marcus moved to the window, looking out at the Hartley Gardens. "What do you want, Catherine? Not what you think you should want. What do you actually want?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I want my child to have a name, to be legitimate, to not grow up bearing the shame of my mistake. But I don't want to trap you in a loveless marriage built on deception. You deserve partnership, honesty, real affection, not obligation." "Then here's what we'll do." Marcus turned to face her, his decision made. "I'll end our engagement, quietly, with dignity. We'll cite incompatibility, mutual agreement, no scandal, no accusations. Your reputation remains intact, but the pregnancy will be your private matter to handle. Perhaps you'll claim a brief marriage to Reed before he left for India, a private ceremony. Perhaps you'll retire to the country and return with a foundling. I don't know the details, and I don't need to. But I won't expose you publicly, and I won't allow you to trap yourself in a marriage neither of us truly wanted. Catherine stared at him in disbelief. You would do that? Protect me after I've deceived you? I'm doing it because it's right, not because you deserve it, but because destroying you publicly would make me cruel, not just disappointed. Marcus moved toward the door. We'll announce the broken engagement this week. Amicable separation. I'll make sure society understands it was mutual and respectful. What you do after that is your choice. Marcus, I don't know how to thank you. Don't. Just learn from this. And don't make the same mistake again. He paused at the door. I hope you find happiness, Catherine. Real happiness, not just escape from consequences. After he left, Marcus met with the Earl privately, explaining the situation with careful discretion. The Earl was mortified, grateful, and relieved in equal measure. They agreed on the public narrative, mutual recognition of incompatibility, respectful separation, best wishes for each other's futures. The announcement appeared in London papers 3 days later. Society buzzed with speculation, but the dignified nature of the separation made it difficult to assign blame or manufacture scandal. The Duke and Lady Catherine had simply decided not to marry. These things happened. Lady Pritchard tried spreading rumours about the pregnancy, but without the Duke's fury to fuel the scandal, the gossip fizzled. Catherine retired to her family's country estate, citing health concerns. By spring, she'd quietly give birth and arrange for the child's care, the exact details never made fully public. Marcus retreated to Ashford House, withdrawing from society's constant scrutiny. The broken engagement stung, but beneath the sting lay relief. He'd nearly trapped himself in a marriage built on lies and practicality. He'd nearly sacrificed any chance at real connection for the sake of duty and heir production. In his study, reviewing correspondence with Eleanor one quiet afternoon, Marcus found himself actually laughing at something she said about parliamentary absurdity. The laugh surprised him. How long had it been since he'd felt genuinely amused, rather than politely entertained? Eleanor looked up from her notes, smiling. It's good to hear you laugh again, Your Grace. Is it? Marcus considered. I suppose I haven't had much to laugh about recently. No, but you've handled it with remarkable grace. Many men would have destroyed Lady Catherine out of pride or wounded ego. I'm not interested in destruction. I'm interested in honesty. Marcus set down his papers. Eleanor, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When your husband died, how long before you stopped grieving and started living again? Eleanor considered the question carefully. I'm not sure the grieving ever fully stops. But the living? I think it began when I stopped waiting for permission to be happy, when I realized that honoring the past didn't require sacrificing the future. Marcus absorbed this. I've been waiting for permission, haven't I? For society to decide it's appropriate for me to remarry, for time to make loneliness respectable, for all the right reasons to align perfectly before I allow myself to actually want something. Yes, Eleanor said gently. You have? That evening, Marcus walked through Ashford House's empty corridors, seeing his life clearly for perhaps the first time in years. This vast house filled with history and duty, requiring an heir to continue the bloodline, his mother and sisters constantly suggesting suitable candidates, society's expectations pressing on him like atmospheric pressure. But beneath all that, what did he actually want? Not Catherine. He'd been honest about that. Not any of the other suitable ladies his family kept suggesting. not marriage as obligation or heir production. What he wanted, Marcus realized, with startling clarity, was what he already had and hadn't noticed. Companionship, conversation, someone who saw him as Marcus rather than as Duke. The comfortable ease he felt with Eleanor during their daily work together, the way she challenged him respectfully, made him laugh, understood him without explanation. Oh, the realization settled into his chest with calm certainty, not dramatic passion, not sudden revelation, just quiet recognition of what had been growing slowly for years while he'd been looking elsewhere. He loved Eleanor Webb, not the way poems described love, not with fireworks and desperate longing, but with steady warmth, deep respect, genuine enjoyment of her company. The kind of love that would last because it was built on truth rather than illusion. The question was, did she feel the same? And if she did, would society ever accept a duke marrying his household secretary, a woman of modest birth and practical profession? Marcus smiled slightly. He'd just survived a scandal by refusing to participate in society's cruelty. Perhaps it was time to shock them all over again, this time with something that actually mattered. 3. Spring came to London with unexpected warmth. Marcus had spent 3 months quietly managing his estates, attending Parliament, and deliberately avoiding society's marriage market. His mother and sisters stopped suggesting suitable ladies after Marcus firmly explained he'd marry when and whom he chose, not at their direction. During those 3 months, Marcus's daily work with Eleanor took on new dimension. They'd always worked well together, but now Marcus noticed details he'd previously taken for granted. The way she laughed at his dry observations about political absurdity, the intelligence in her eyes when she challenged his assumptions about estate management, the comfortable silence when they worked side by side reviewing accounts. He noticed, too, that Eleanor seemed more relaxed around him lately, less formal, more likely to share her actual opinions rather than deferring to his title, as though some barrier had dissolved in the aftermath of his broken engagement. One afternoon in late April, while reviewing tenant concerns in his study, Marcus set down his papers and spoke without planning the words first. "Eleanor, may I ask you something unrelated to estate business?" She looked up, curious. "Of course, Your Grace. Why haven't you remarried? You've been widowed 12 years. You're intelligent, capable, still young. Surely there have been opportunities." Eleanor's expression shifted to something thoughtful. "There have been opportunities, but I've learned that marriage for security or companionship isn't enough if there's no genuine connection. I'd rather live independently and contentedly than marry someone I don't truly value." "Value," Marcus repeated. "Not love? I think value becomes love, given time and honesty. Passion fades, attraction changes. But valuing someone, respecting them, enjoying their company, that can deepen." Eleanor met his eyes directly. "Why do you ask, Your Grace?" Marcus took a breath. This was the moment. Risk everything or retreat to safety. "Because I've come to realize that I've been extraordinarily foolish. I nearly married a woman I didn't know, for reasons that had nothing to do with actual happiness. And while I've been looking for suitable marriages, I've overlooked something that was right in front of me for 12 years. Eleanor went very still. "Your Grace." "Marcus," he interrupted gently. "When we're alone, call me Marcus. We've known each other too long for titles to mean anything real between us." "Marcus," Eleanor corrected, her voice careful. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I value you. I respect you. I enjoy your company more than anyone else's. I find myself laughing with you, arguing with you, missing your presence when you're not here. And I've come to realize that what I've been searching for in marriage, markets, and social gatherings has been here all along. Tears glistened in Eleanor's eyes. You're a duke. I'm your employee. Society would never. Society said I should marry Catherine, and that would have been a disaster. Society says many things, most of them wrong. Marcus stood, moving around the desk to where Eleanor sat. What does your heart say? Not your practicality or your fear of scandal, your heart. Eleanor looked up at him, and Marcus saw the answer in her face before she spoke. My heart says, I've loved you for years. Quietly, hopelessly, knowing you'd never look at me that way. Knowing the gap between duke and secretary was too vast. But yes, Marcus. My heart says yes. Marcus pulled her gently to her feet, his hands finding hers. Then let me be clear. I'm not asking you to be my mistress or my secret. I'm telling you that when enough time has passed to be respectful, when society has moved on from the Catherine disaster, I'm going to ask you properly to be my wife. And I wanted you to know my intention before I took any public steps. Your mother will be horrified. My mother will adjust. So will everyone else. They'll say you've lost your mind. They already think that. Might as well prove them right by doing something actually worth the scandal. Eleanor laughed, the sound breaking through tears. This is madness. Good madness or bad madness. The very best madness. She squeezed his hands. But Marcus, we should wait. Let the proper time pass. Do this correctly, so society has less ammunition. 6 months, Marcus agreed. And during those 6 months, we'll be properly professional in public and honest with each other in private. We'll build the foundation right this time. They sealed it with a kiss, gentle and certain, built on 12 years of friendship, finally acknowledged as love. The 6 months that followed tested their patience. Marcus attended required social events without Eleanor, maintaining proper appearances. Eleanor continued managing his household with perfect professionalism. But in private, they built their partnership deliberately. Long conversations about everything from politics to philosophy. Discussions about what marriage would actually look like when titles and age gaps mattered less than compatibility. Marcus meeting Eleanor's small circle of friends and family, being welcomed as Marcus rather than as Duke. Eleanor learning to navigate aristocratic expectations without losing herself. It wasn't always easy. Marcus's mother, when she eventually learned of his intentions, reacted with exactly the horror Eleanor predicted. His sisters were more accepting, though concerned about scandal. Society whispered and speculated, and placed bets on whether the Duke would actually follow through. But Marcus had learned something from the Catherine disaster, that living honestly mattered more than living correctly. That real love was worth more than social approval. That dignity came from integrity, not from following rules that served no one. 6 months after his broken engagement, Marcus hosted a small dinner at Ashford House. Not a ball or formal reception, just 30 carefully chosen guests, progressive-minded families who valued character over convention, his closest friends from Parliament, a few relatives who'd proven themselves supportive, and Eleanor, positioned not as household staff but as honoured guest. The whispers started immediately. Marcus ignored them. After dinner, when port and conversation flowed, he stood and requested attention. Friends, I've asked you here tonight because you've shown me support and friendship during a difficult year. You've proven yourselves capable of seeing beyond convention to substance. So I wanted to share news with you first, before it becomes public. The room went quiet. Every eye fixed on Marcus. I intend to marry Mrs. Eleanor Webb. Gasps, shocked silence. Then, slowly, applause began from one corner. Lord Whitfield, an elderly parliamentarian known for progressive views. Others joined tentatively. Not everyone, but enough. Marcus continued. I know this is unconventional. Mrs. Webb has been my estate secretary for 12 years. She's of modest birth, a working professional, not from aristocratic family. Society will call this scandalous. Some of you may choose to distance yourselves. I understand and respect that choice." He turned to Eleanor, who stood with quiet dignity, not ashamed, not apologizing. "But Eleanor is the most intelligent, capable, honest person I know. She's my partner in every meaningful sense. She understands me. She challenges me. She makes me better. And after 12 years of working together, I've learned that real partnership is worth more than social approval." He extended his hand to Eleanor. She took it, stepping forward to stand beside him. "We'll marry in 3 months," Marcus continued. "A private ceremony. Those of you willing to support us will be welcome. Those who cannot, I wish you well, with no bitterness. But I wanted you to hear this directly from me, with honesty, before gossip twisted it into something it's not." After the dinner, as guests departed, reactions split predictably. Half offered genuine congratulations. A quarter were polite, but clearly uncomfortable. The remaining quarter left quickly, already planning how to socially distance themselves from the scandal. Marcus's mother cornered him in the hall with tears in her eyes. "Marcus, please reconsider. The damage to our family name will be temporary, mother, and worth it." Marcus spoke gently but firmly. "I'm not asking your permission. I'm informing you of my decision. You can choose to support it or not, but you cannot change it. She's a secretary. She's a woman of remarkable character, who's managed this estate's affairs brilliantly for over a decade. She's respectful, intelligent, and makes me genuinely happy. Those qualities matter more to me than birth or title." His mother left, still disapproving, but less vocally so. Time would tell if she'd soften. The following week, Marcus made a more public statement. At a parliamentary session, during discussion of marriage law reforms, he spoke openly about class barriers and the arbitrary nature of aristocratic standards. "We claim to value character and merit," he said to the assembled lords, "yet we mock those who marry beneath their station, as though birth determines worth. I speak from personal experience. My upcoming marriage to Mrs. Eleanor Webb will scandalize some of you. I accept that. But I refuse to be ashamed of choosing partnership over pedigree, honesty over social climbing." The speech was recorded, circulated, debated. Some applauded his courage. Others called him naive or foolish. But the conversation itself mattered. Marcus had forced society to examine assumptions they'd taken for granted. The wedding took place on a quiet June morning at Ashford House's private chapel. Small, intimate, attended only by those who genuinely supported them. Eleanor wore simple elegance, not trying to perform aristocracy, but comfortable in her own identity. Marcus stood beside her with quiet pride. Lady Selina Harrogate attended, delivering the speech at the wedding breakfast that had guests laughing and crying in equal measure. "I've watched London's marriage market for 40 years, she announced. "I've seen countless suitable matches based on title and fortune. Most of them are miserable. These two have something rare. They actually like each other. That's more valuable than any dowry." After the ceremony, as Marcus and Eleanor greeted guests, his sister approached with unexpected warmth. "I was skeptical," she admitted, "but watching you together, the way you look at each other, the ease between you, I understand now. This is what marriage should be." The honeymoon was deliberately low-key. They travelled to Ashford's country estate, away from London's scrutiny, spending 2 weeks simply being together without titles or expectations. One evening, sitting before the fire in the estate library, Eleanor leaned against Marcus's shoulder with comfortable affection. "Do you regret it? The scandal, the gossip, Your mother's disappointment? Marcus pulled her closer. Not for a single moment. Do you? I'm still adjusting to being a duchess. It feels surreal. You've been managing a duke's household for 12 years. You were already doing the work. Now you just have the title to match it. And the scandal to match it, Eleanor added wryly. Scandal fades. Truth remains. Marcus kissed her forehead. We made the right choice, Eleanor. Not the easy one, but the true one. They returned to London after 2 weeks to find society had, predictably, moved on to newer scandals. The Duke's unconventional marriage was old news. Some doors remained closed, but others opened. Progressive families invited them to dinners. Younger aristocrats cited their marriage as inspiration for their own choices. Most surprisingly, Catherine Hartley sent a letter of congratulation 6 months after their wedding. Dear Your Grace, I heard of your marriage to Mrs. Webb and wanted to offer my sincere congratulations. You've found what I hope to find someday, genuine partnership built on honesty rather than convenience. Thank you again for your kindness during my difficult time. You showed me what integrity looks like, and that lesson has guided me since. I've given birth to a healthy daughter. She's being raised by my sister in the country, with a story that protects her from scandal. Perhaps someday I'll tell her the truth. For now, she's safe and loved, and that's what matters. I wish you and your Duchess every happiness. You've earned it. Respectfully, Lady Catherine Hartley. Marcus showed the letter to Eleanor, who read it with gentle sympathy. I hope she finds her happiness too. She will, when she's ready to be honest rather than desperate. Marcus folded the letter carefully. She taught me something important, actually, that building anything on lies and convenience eventually crumbles. Better to face hard truths early than discover them later. 5 years after their wedding, Marcus and Eleanor hosted a Christmas gathering at Ashford House. Their daughter, Anne, now 3 years old, tottered through the room under watchful eyes. Lady Selina Harrogate held court near the fire, entertaining younger guests with stories of London's scandals. Marcus's mother, who'd slowly accepted Eleanor over time, sat with her granddaughter, teaching her to arrange Christmas greenery. She'd never apologize for her initial resistance, but her presence and affection spoke louder than words. Eleanor, now comfortable in her role as Duchess, moved through the gathering with quiet confidence, not performing aristocracy, just being herself, proving that character mattered more than breeding. As evening deepened and guests began departing, Marcus and Eleanor stood together, watching snow fall outside the tall windows. Their daughter slept upstairs. Their home, filled with genuine friends rather than social obligations. Their marriage built on 12 years of friendship and 5 years of honest partnership. Do you remember that first dinner? Eleanor asked, when you announced our engagement. How terrified I was. I remember thinking you were the bravest person I knew, standing there with dignity, not apologizing for existing. I learned that from you, watching how you handled Catherine's situation, the way you chose integrity over revenge, honesty over convenience. Marcus pulled her close. We learnt it together, and we're still learning. And so, dear listeners, Marcus and Eleanor proved that sometimes the bravest act is choosing truth over convenience, even when truth costs everything. They showed us that real love isn't about passion or suitability. It's about partnership built on genuine respect and honest connection. That dignity comes not from following society's rules, but from living according to your own integrity. And that sometimes the person you've been searching for has been right beside you all along, waiting for you to finally see clearly. If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing for more tales of moral courage, second chances, and love that sees truly. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How would you handle discovering a devastating secret? What does real partnership look like to you? Share your reflections in the comments below. Until next time, may you always choose truth over performance, dignity over revenge, and may you find someone who values you for exactly who you are. This is your storyteller, reminding you that the most powerful stories are the ones where people choose character over convenience, even when it costs them everything.